Hey, welcome back to the Get a Grip podcast. I'm your host, Shane Bacon. We have moved over to Fried Egg Golf. We've got a new co-host with us, and we've got a new presenting sponsor. Pinehurst Resorts, of course, where they will be playing the 2024 U.S. Open, has jumped on board. I mean, if you've been to Pinehurst, you understand how great it is to go out there and play all those golf courses. They've now got 10 of them. Of course, they'll be hosting the U.S. Open this year. Along with that, they've got 4 championships in the next decade. 2029 U.S. Open. They've got the Women's Open in 2030, 2035, and 2041. And again, in 2047, God hope we can all be covering that event by then. And for those interested, I mentioned number 10. First time in nearly 3 decades, Pinehurst has opened its first original course designed by Tom Doak. Number 10 features dramatic elevation changes, natural sandy areas, and remnants of the early 20th century sand mining operations. Also has a very, very snazzy logo. Listen, if you haven't been to Pinehurst, do it. Plan your next golf trip today at pinehurst.com. And a shout out to Pinehurst for involving themselves in this podcast for the foreseeable future. This podcast has changed a couple of different times, but we're back to how it originated. We're back with a co-host, a plain co-host at that. Andrew Putnam is on the mic, and he's with us right now. Andrew, I want to start with this. Why did you decide to do this? Why did you want to jump on this for a mini season?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me, Shane. And I did a podcast with Andy, the Fried Egg podcast. It might have been a year and a half ago at Riviera, and had a great time doing it. It seemed like it was fun talking about golf, talking about the week, and hearing that you wanted to invite me on your show. Definitely honored to do that. And Max Homer was the last guy on here, and his success after the podcast was pretty great. So just a great opportunity. And I think we actually might have first met at Max's wedding. I'm trying to remember, but I think that's when we first met. So you seem like a great guy, and figured, let's do it.
I mean, you've been having an awesome season this year. I know you jumped off of 2023 and played really well last year. How have you kind of continued this success this year? Because it feels like not only are you playing consistent golf, especially as of late, but it feels like you're playing consistent golf at some of the harder venues that you guys play each and every season.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very consistent couple of year run for me. My first few years on tour seemed to have some valleys, peaks and valleys, but felt like I've matured a lot, in my game and as a person. And I think my game fits more of the type of courses, that par is a good score. And like this last week was a perfect example of that. Obviously, it's a long course, so that part didn't suit my game as much. It suits more the guy like Rory McIlroy, but I've had a pretty consistent start to the year. Played well at Bay Hill. That's one of those courses that you're just trying to survive, and you don't really enjoy the week. You're just you're grinding so hard. The weekends, and you're like, man, there's some courses that you feel like you have fun playing. Like there's a lot of birdies. It's enjoyable. Some courses that are just a grind, and Bay Hill was one of those. RBC kind of feels like that. There's some shots, they're just very uncomfortable, and played decent there a couple of weeks ago, and then again this week, similar type thing for me at least. Rory and Xander had a little easier time on the course than some of us, but
well, I'll tell you this: you didn't miss a lot of fairways. I think you hit every fairway in round 1 and hit all but one fairway in round 2. I mean, that's not the easiest thing to do anywhere, but especially around Quail Hollow.
Yeah. No, I mean, my driver was going really straight. It wasn't going very far because we had a lot of rain in the beginning of the week, and the ball was plugging. We're playing left clean in place, so honestly, that's just the worst possible setup for my game. I'm like, I need the fairways to be running. I hit it pretty low, so I need a lot of run out, and I don't carry the ball very far. So, looking at that forecast prior to the week, I wasn't too happy, but driving actually was great. I mean, there's some holes that are, some of the fairways that are tough to hit, like 12. This hole down, goes downhill about 40 yards, and you still gotta hit it. You got to be controlling your ball pretty good to hit all the fairways. I mean, it's obviously wide and for the most part, but yeah, I think I was looking at my stats just before this podcast. Hopefully was trying to make sure I knew some of my stats, but was number one in fairways hit for the field, which always good.
I mean, this sport has turned into such a power sport. You know, I mean, we talk so much about distance. Obviously, Rory, I mean, he bombed it, you know, all over the golf course, didn't hit a whole bunch of fairways, but it's changed so much. How often are somebody like you looking at these numbers and thinking about distance and trying to get longer? Like, is that a thing that you focus on, or do you just kind of lean into your game and try to do what you do well?
It's more of a thing right now where I'm just trying to not lose a whole lot of distance. You know, I'm 35 and I worked with the stack and the speed sticks and I've done a lot of that stuff. And I think it's really great, you know, to help for me maintain speed, but to build speed, it is really difficult. You know, it's like one of those things you're trying to manage. Like, you know, I've had some back injuries in the past. And so trying to work out, I have a trainer in Arizona I work with twice a week. And then you're trying to do speed training and you're like, okay, traveling, I got kids. So you're trying to manage like, all right, I want to stay healthy. I don't want to get injured. Trying to gain speed. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of training. And so my goal is to maintain, you know, it's not really to gain because I feel like if I try to push it too much, I've hurt myself in the past. And my body it's probably the best I've felt in the last, 2 years. I've been in a really good rhythm. So maybe I get to that point, but yeah, I mean, it's so important now in today's game with some of the courses they play. I think, the tour definitely wants the longer hitters to win. It just helps with TV ratings and everything, and I don't blame them.
But I mean, it does, yes, but I do feel like there has been a slight loss in just the fact that there are so many different types of players that can compete professionally. I mean, I feel like I'm 40. I mean, I grew up watching, John Daly and then Tiger and Phil Mickelson and VJ and these guys that could hit it forever. But one of the beautiful things was there were guys that didn't hit it forever that could compete relatively good against those types of guys. And I do wonder if that's being lost, if that's already lost in today's game. It does just feel like when you look through the top 10 and you look through major winners and you look at Valhalla this week and beyond, it seems like everything's kind of been catered to guys that bomb it. As a player that's been out there for a long, long time, is that something you kind of battle? Are they almost pushing guys that don't hit it 330 out of the game the way they kind of set up tournament venues?
I don't, there's certain courses that, yes, that's definitely true, but there are still a handful of players. Like I played with Russell Henley this week. I mean, we hit a pretty similar distance and he finished 10th. And, Brendan Todd's had a lot of success the last few years, Brian Harmon. So there's still, a handful of guys that they're not the longest, but they've had a lot of success. There's just certain courses that I feel like they're not going to win on, or we're not going to win on. Like it's not going to happen. I think probably some of the bigger venues, like, Brian Harmon obviously won the British Open, but that course, the Open Championship, I would say, is the least, distance is probably the least important on. Usually you get all those weird angles and bunkers and stuff you got to avoid. But there's still, I would say half the tournaments a year still are fine for guys like me. Like last week, if we would have had rough at Wells Fargo, I think that would have made a huge difference. I would have benefited a lot from that because people can't just hit it everywhere and carry these bunkers. And because with how, firm the greens are, you're not going to be able to hold them from the rough. So, there's certain ways they can set them up that still, the guy who's not as long still can compete, even on these long courses.
Do you and your brother still play a lot of golf together? Do you guys still go out there and battle? I mean, I know you mentioned, I read an interview you did late last year and you said you guys play about once a week when you can. Is that still something you guys do?
Yeah, we play pretty much every Wednesday at Fircrest Country Club. It's like we got a Wednesday group that, rain or shine, these guys are playing. I'm a little more fair weather. It's like in the winter, middle of the winter time, it's tough. It's when it's like 35 degrees and rainy and windy. I'm like, guys, I don't know. We kind of have our thing where we drop the kids off at school. We swing through Chick-fil-A, we grab some breakfast right on the way, and then we're going playing 18 holes. And my brother, that's like his day, with his wife now that he has a normal job. He's like, all right, Wednesdays is my day to golf and I'm not going to give it up. So, we do that pretty much every Wednesday. There's only been 9 holes where I just was like, guys, I'm not playing, but I've played in the rain a handful of times. It's fun.
How is his game? I mean, for people that don't know, I mean, he played on the PGA Tour as well. I mean, I think you guys were one of the first brothers on tour in like a decade when you guys both got to play at the same time. How is his game now that he's in real estate and actually having a real job?
It's a little streaky. It's I'd say it's rare that he beats me, but he did have a 2-month streak that he was playing really great golf. I think it was probably a month ago, where he shot, 63, 65, 64. So, it's when you're a pro and you're as good as he is, if you're playing just kind of a normal, it's a private course, but it's 6,800 yards and soft, you're going to shoot low 60s. And so he had a good stretch of that. His game's, he tried the local qualifier for the US Open and didn't have a very good day, but he's still got a lot of talent and is a great player. He's always been one of the best ball strikers, I think, in the game. It's never been something that's held him back. So you don't really lose ball striking, I don't think.
What was that relationship like growing up? You guys both competing in the same sport. I mean, was it friendly? Was it competitive? How did you guys go about that as you guys were kids and teenagers, and then obviously getting into college and things like that?
For most of my life, it was him just being way better than I was. He's 5 years older, so he would just crush me every time we play. When he was in college, he was one of the, if not the best player, one of the best coming out. Walker Cupper, and so it was more like I looked up to him, and he was kind of showing me the ropes, and honestly, he was one of those guys that he would always speak like, Andrew's going to be better than I am. Like he spoke that life into me, where I didn't know if I was going to, follow his footsteps, and he was great at like speaking that into me. And it did come true, unfortunately. I never knew it would. He was so good coming out of college, he was one of those can't miss guys. But he was definitely a huge encouragement to my golf career early on.
Well, this is a sport, I always talk about how golf always beats you down, and rarely is there anybody rooting for you, outside of kind of friends and family. Having somebody within your family that understands what you're going through has to be enormous, because you're, as you said, 5 years behind him, going through a lot of the same stuff he's going through, don't have the same accolades as he does, but he's sitting there kind of boosting you up all the time. So I know there's plenty of brother dynamics where it's like, I'm trying to beat you at all times, and I'm sure you guys had that, but having someone that is as close to you as he is, and also is rooting for you, and also is telling people how talented you are, that's so much confidence that you can boost yourself from simply listening to somebody that you love and that you're related to. Yeah.
Yeah, people ask, like, did your brother help you with specific stuff? Like, did he give you specific advice on how to get better as a golfer and all this? And when I would think about it, it was more like caught than taught, that phrase. There was more that I think that, if I look back, that I would just observe and see how he was going through the process of navigating turning professional or life on the road, or, him and my dad had a pretty close relationship where Michael would call in quite a bit, and, after his tournaments, and kind of rehash the rounds, and my dad was kind of the person he would listen to. And so I was in high school at that point, and I would be on the couch listening to everything going on. And there's things that I learned that, like things that I would change and maybe not want to do like he did, or things that I appreciated, how he played the game and learned from. And so there's a lot that just from observing, as his brother, I learned and was to my advantage.
All right, I got a couple of questions for you, kind of a get to know Mr. Putnam. What podcasts do you listen to currently? Are you a podcast consumer?
Huge podcast guy. Let's see. I have like 5 or 6. There's all different categories. So let's see. I have, I do like Joe Rogan and the Huberman podcast, a lot of like sports performance. I used to listen a lot to Tim Ferriss.
Yep.
Lex Friedman. My business podcast I'm listening to is the All In Pod. Those are just some to name off the top of my head, but I love podcasts.
Like you're on the airplane listening to them, or you listen to them when you're practicing playing, like driving to and from the golf course? Like I'm always interested in, as we get older and as we age, the transition and the way people consume things. You know, you're 22 and all you listen to is music. You get to
Yeah.
be 30 and it seems like all you do is listen to podcasts. You know, it just seems like things change. So how do you consume them? When do you consume them?
Pretty much all day, every day. I mean, my wife almost is like, what else do you like? What else do you listen to or do? Like, I'm kind of addicted to podcasts. I'm addicted to, like, I love learning. And so like the way podcasts have grown the last 5 years, like for someone who loves to learn, like there's nothing better. Like you get these long form conversations, people sit down. I just love like soaking up the knowledge from all sorts of different people and hearing their perspectives on everything. So, I mean, in the car is probably the best time when I have to drive, but I'm doing it all the time. Flying, yeah.
All right. All right. So what sports are you into? Are you like, do you watch NBA playoffs? Do you watch hockey playoffs? Like, what do you do in terms of sports? And I'm assuming your teams are Pacific Northwest teams, but who are your kind of squads you follow and pay attention to?
I mean, I'm mostly a Seahawks fan, Mariners a little bit now that they've been bad for so long. It's been so tough to cheer for them. I mean, I was a Sonics fan. Kraken, I need to start getting into. I mean, I'm in the time of my life. I got a 5 and a 3-year-old who aren't really quite into the sports scene yet. So I think my nephew who's 13, he's really into Mariners. So we have the Mariners on a lot in the backyard. But I think that's something I'll be growing into a little bit more. But Seahawks for sure.
Yeah, you know what's funny is, so I've got almost exactly the same age kids as you do. So I've got a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. And I thought the sports thing would hit quicker. Like I thought they'd be into it a little bit more. And I'm just waiting for my son to care. Now, my daughter will occasionally say ball at the TV and kind of sit next to me and look like she wants to watch sports. But I thought that this was going to be a thing. They turn 3 and be dialed on watching a game with you. And I'm kind of waiting for that to click, you know?
Yeah, they're not. My kid, my little boy, like he's out right now riding in this tractor at this house, and I mean he's like, if there's a bug on the ground, like he wants to pick the bug up. He wants to play with worms. I mean, that's our thing. We just go out and we're going through the dirt. But it's to the point. I told my wife, I was like, okay, we kind of put some goals out, like what we want to do. I'm like, all right, I want to bring him to the course. I want to like get him into that habit of like going out with dad and playing some sports, because I feel like I haven't done that as much yet. My girl, she likes playing with girly stuff, dolls and everything, but something I'm trying to, but I thought my son would just naturally, because I'm into sports and I like having golf on, they're like, turn that off, like I want to watch whatever their show is, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I'd like you to actually care about what I care about, and unfortunately, it's the other way around, Andrew. You start to care about what they care about. So when they wake up in the morning and my son wants SpongeBob on, I'm like, so I'm not watching DP World. I guess I'll watch SpongeBob with you, but maybe we're like 2 years away. How is parenting as a pro athlete? How do you deal with it? Do they kids travel with you on the road a lot? Are they at home most of the time? Because, one of the things that I've transitioned and changed in my life is traveling. Like I've tried to travel less and less since I've had these 2 kids, because I want to be home. I want to be with the kids. I want to be around Cindy, like those types of things. How is it as a pro athlete traveling and either being away from the kids or bringing them with you on the road?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the best things about the PGA Tour and playing. I think as a golfer, like we get to bring our kids and family on the road if we choose to, because we're in one place for a week at a time. Unlike some other sports, they're just, they're playing a game for one night and they're coming back. So we're here for a week at a time, and I bring my family pretty much every week. Every week I can. Kids are still at the age that they're not fully into school, and we're just trying to do it while we can. I mean, it's not easy, but it's the PGA Tour, probably one of the best benefits they have. They have like we call it tour school out here. So they have the same teachers traveling every single week, and they take them on field trips. They're doing activities with them. Our kids love the teachers, and, they have all they call them tour friends, the friends who travel with their parents. And so it actually works pretty well. Once we get to the tournament, we're done flying like that. Obviously that's nightmare to do that
Worst
with
part
kids
for
with
sure.
25 bags and just, I mean, maybe while we're doing the pod, we'll get to some travel stories because we've had just a heck of a run the last few years. But besides that, flying and doing all that, it's pretty good because my wife gets a 5-hour break during the day. The kids are happy with their classmates and life's pretty good.
How has your life on tour and traveling on tour changed since the family has become the family? Because I'm assuming a decade ago, you're traveling, you're hitting up people of similar ages to do dinner with or to do whatever, go out with, watch games with. Do you ever go out with guys anymore? Is it all family time? Like, how do you kind of balance that, and how has that shifted for you?
I mean, it's so opposite. It's like my first 3 years, I had a friend on the bag with who caddied for me, and then my first year, I traveled with Max and Joe quite a bit, like because my buddy who caddied for me, Johnny Mack, was best friends with him. So we'd always, we'd get a house together, we'd travel together. I was always around guys my age, and that that's obviously a lot of fun, travel with friends. But now it's just completely different. I'm pretty much not like. There's no night that I'm going out like, I'm going to say, hey, babe, I'm going to go hang out with this guy tonight. Good luck with the kids. Like, I mean, she would let me if there's someone I hadn't seen in a while and I want to grab dinner, but there's not too many times where that's happening. So it's like, well, if my family's on the road, they're just nonstop, no margin. I'm just going, which I think is good as a golfer. It's good because like when I'm off the course, I don't have time to think about my bad shot on 5 that I hit in the water. It's like your kid needs your diaper change. Like you're in like, you're just trying to get through, whatever, a couple hours till they get to bed. And then, so it's like that. And then, there's certain weeks that the family doesn't travel. And, after like a day or two is nice away from the family. Like you get rest, you're like, can catch up on things, but then it's like the opposite. It's like you're so bored because you're used to just nonstop. I'm sure you experience the same thing when you come on the road. It's good for a day or two, and then you're like, okay, like bring back the chaos. Like let's go. Like, and my wife doesn't quite understand that because she's like, oh my gosh, you get the whole week to yourself and sleep. I couldn't imagine that. I'm like, okay, it is nice for a few nights, but then it's like, man, I miss my family. I miss the kids, and you get used to just the chaos all the time, just nonstop.
It's funny. I have found, when I used to travel and didn't have kids and stuff like that, I was always social. Like I would always go out. I'd meet up with buddies in the media, or you'd go out with friends that were playing and things like that. What's funny to me, Andrew, now is I find myself using travel weeks, like work weeks on the road, as just like rest catch up. So I'm so lame on the road now. Like Uber Eats, order food in, like try to go to bed at like 10 p.m. or earlier. And again, you talk about annoying your wife. Like Cindy will be like, really cool, man. That's great. I really appreciate you doing that because, she's at home like dealing with the total chaos. And I'm like, yeah, I'm refreshed. I'm ready to rock and roll,
You can't, the secret is you can't say that stuff. You got to be like, oh, the hotel stinks. Like this AC unit's keeping me up all night. Can't paint the picture. It's too good.
I think John McGinnis told me when we had our first kid, he said, just remember the dinner was never that good and the hotel room is never that comfortable. And I was like, that's very good advice. I like that. John McGinnis has thrown a lot of those nuggets my way. Just real quick. I wanted to ask you, we have the presenting sponsor that's Pinehurst. Have you played Pinehurst number 2 before?
I have, yeah. I played the USAM there 2008 maybe, or I forget when. Danny Lee won.
How'd you do?
I think in stroke play I finished 7th. So I played well then, and then I got beat like the first or second round by some one of those mid-am guys, like 40, 50-year-old dudes. And I just couldn't believe it. I forget who it was who beat me, but I'm sure there's some. I
want to dive in and look at this up. See if we can find 2008 match play USA Amateur results.
I think it was 2008. But yeah, I remember Danny Lee. Danny Lee was the winner. And
Danny Lee.
He wasn't.
Go ahead.
I haven't played it since they redid it, so that was before the redo. And I was actually out there 2000 and was it when
14?
Jason Gore? No, the U.S. Open was there. My brother played. I watched him. That was his first year out of college, and Jason Gore was near the lead. Him and Olin Brown, another person. I was roommates with Olin Brown. His dad was close to the lead going into the final round. They both, I think, shot like mid 80s or something. So I
remember that. Yeah, I was looking up '08, and that's Danny Lee beating Drew Kittleson, who at the time is 19, and now Kittleson's the annoying mid-am guy that nobody wants to play. So
exactly.
Like that's the full circle moment for you. But just a shout out to Pinehurst for being involved in this. As I mentioned, obviously the U.S. Open is going to be there this year. Number 10 is their new golf course there, and for anybody that's interested in going and checking it out, I went last year with some buddies. Excellent guys trip, buddies trip, anything like that. Obviously, the Cradle is the short course there. Gil Hance design, and it is exceptional, as is Pinehurst number 4, which Gil redid. And then you never want to pass up Pinehurst Brewing Company. It's like the spot to go to. Pizza's awesome. Beers are great. And you can get all that dialed and reserved at pinehurst.com. So make sure you do that. All right, I want to transition to two things, Andrew. One thing is, where's your game right now? How are you feeling about your current game as we get set for the PGA Championship? And where's your game lacking right now? What part of your game do you feel like isn't where you want it? And maybe you're going to work on it this week or just try to get that dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, overall, game feels pretty good. I've had the last few weeks, minus the partner, the Zurich. The Zurich's always a weird one. It's hard to know where your game's at going off that week. But been playing great, driving the ball pretty straight and hitting it pretty good, and irons are working well, which it's usually the irons and the putting are the strength. My driving, if I'm hitting in the fairway, and that's usually going to have a good week. Last week, to be honest, it was probably my worst chipping week I've ever had. I don't know what was happening. I was really pretty good at the short game, but I think a combination of the way they cut some of the chipping areas was really, really, really tight. And I think my wedges had maybe just a little too much bounce. I put some new wedges in last week, and I don't know, I was having a really tough time. It didn't feel like it should have been as hard as it was, but I was hitting some really bad chips. So hopefully get out there maybe this afternoon, tomorrow, and work on the short game a little bit, try to dial that in. Because if I'm missing greens, I need to get up and down. I didn't do very well last week.
When you talk about different bounce on the wedges, was it like a different bounce that you had in the wedges, or was they just new wedges with what you thought was the same bounce as previous?
New wedges, yeah. I mean, this may not be true, but I used my previous wedges for a while for 4 or 5 months, and sometimes when you expose the bounce and you're chipping a lot, it might wear that down just a little bit. So these look like they're sitting just a little bit higher for me. And the grass last week on some of these chipping areas, I don't know if people saw, but they mow them like super tight and grainy. And if you open the club face a little bit, you can, like when I look down, I can kind of see the leading edge sitting up a little bit. And, some people will switch wedges and switch bounce based on the week. And, I played a practice round with Jason Day, and he has the same Srixon Cleveland wedges that I have. And he had all the lower bounce, like the 6 bounce, I have the 10. So maybe I should have learned something from him. He maybe knew, like, on this kind of course, you want to have a little less bounce. But I definitely was exposed in the tournament because I had a hard time.
When that stuff gets in your brain, by the way, it throws you for a loop, doesn't it? Like the moment you think the bounce is wrong or the way it's sitting is different, even if it's not, it's like all you can think about is that. Like I'm battling it with my driver right now in the loft on my driver, and the moment it creeps in your brain that the loft isn't right for the way you're swinging, it's almost like you can't hit the golf club anymore. It's so weird that that's the case, even if it's not true.
Yeah, no, the way your eyes perceive how things look when you just look down at the club is like, it's a huge thing in golf. And some people maybe are thinking we're crazy, but it's like, when you play enough, like little things could be off visually when you see. I've had that happen where like my driver loft looks off, and I'm just like, I literally have no idea where this is going. And maybe the driver didn't even change, but something in my setup made it to where I'm leaning more this way, and the loft looks less, and you just don't know where to swing the club. It's the same with chipping too. If you're open in the face and it just looks like it's not sitting right, you're just like, man, I don't have confidence to like go at this with aggressively, and then all sorts of bad stuff can happen.
Can you talk about some of the irons you hit into some of the holes at the Wells Fargo compared to some of the irons that Rory hit into some of the holes at the Wells Fargo?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to watch the end of his last round, but I mean, I'm one of the shorter guys on tour, I would say, and even though like when I'm playing, I don't feel like I'm super short. Like, you know, if I hit a good one, I'm 10 yards behind some of the medium to longer hitters. It's probably when I miss hit that's exposed. But for example, let's see, hole 10, hole 11's a par 4 kind of up the hill with a pretty severe green. And, you know, Rory's hitting his driver over the left bunker, which is like a, you know, 320 yard carry. I don't know how, 320 yards, I think. I don't even look at those numbers because I can't even do it. But I played with a couple guys who are pretty long and they weren't carrying that bunker. So he's hitting like a gap wedge in. I'm hitting, you know, decent shot, which, you know, the fairway slopes uphill and then it goes down to where he's hitting, it's going down. So it's not shaped well for me because I'm hitting into an upslope, getting 0 roll. So I'm hitting like a 5-iron into this green where, you know, the last round, the pin was on the front and how firm the greens are. I have no chance to get it within closer than 30 feet. I got to hit a perfect shot to get 30 feet past the hole and he's hitting a gap wedge. Obviously 16, you saw him hitting it over that bunker. I mean, it was 310 yards to the bunker. So you know, and it was, you know, it was playing really soft. It was soaked in the beginning of the week. So I'm not even getting to the bunker. I have 5-iron, I had 3-iron, and he has, you know, gap wedge. I mean, I saw Xander hit, you know, 9-iron in there, a pitching wedge too, you know, the last day. Yeah, hole number 1, I think Rory hit it. He hit it, I think the last round. I was actually talking to Brandel, was on my flight. He was saying that he hit it like 50 yards past Xander and had like a flip wedge in the hole number 1, and Xander had like, you know, a 7-iron or something. So he went against, you know, like Xander. He's long. It's just crazy the places he could go and hit it on this course.
It almost feels like Rory is getting longer. I mean, is that fair to say? It feels like it's almost like he's gaining distance over the last year or so.
It probably is. I mean, especially on a course like that where, I mean, visually it's very wide and you can feel like you can just rip it. Like there's not many courses where we feel visually that you literally can just swing as hard as you can and you don't feel like there's that much trouble around there. So I think it exaggerates that feel like on a course like last week, but I think he is getting longer. I mean, it's wild to see him in person. I mean, he's not a big guy. Like,
right.
I don't know what his height is. He's under 6 foot, I think.
I mean, he's 5'9". I mean, he's like 5'9", 165, 170 maybe.
It's just crazy to see how that ball can go that far from someone like that, where it's not like he seems like he's swinging out of his shoes too.
All right, I want to transition to Valhalla because obviously you're in the field this week at the PGA Championship. Have you ever seen this golf course, played it before?
Never seen it. I've watched it at Ryder Cups and PGA Championship, obviously when Tiger won, but never been out there.
Do you ever do any research on these things before you get there, or is it all kind of when you show up, you go through your process and consume it that way?
Yeah, usually I like to see it with fresh eyes and sometimes it's hard if you like try to do research and watch previous rounds. Like if I would have done that last year, like for the British Open last year, I think the previous time they played there, it was extremely firm and fast where they were hitting like, you know, 5 irons off every tee. I think Tiger won there hitting iron off every tee, right?
Yep.
Well, we get there and it's super soft. And people that had played there in the past were telling, you know, I was playing with Dustin Johnson and a couple of guys who were like, man, I can't believe this place. Like I was hitting like 8 iron here. Now I'm, you know, so they're looking back at how it was, you know, and I think that might not be an advantage for them. So sometimes it's good to just see it with fresh eyes and, you know, the conditions like this week, it's supposed to rain a lot in the beginning of the week. So it might play different than if I, you know, rewatch some highlights from past years. So I kind of, that's
2014,
yeah.
10 years ago.
10 years. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, Bob, who was it? Bob May was in the playoff. Bob May and Tiger. Is that who it was?
Yeah, that was 2000. So that would have been.
Okay.
I mean, that was the second PGA they had at Valhalla, and that's Tiger, Bob May. And then 2014, it's like it's Rory coming down the stretch. So, I mean, yeah, like, what are you going to gain from that? Probably not a ton, but just wondering if there was any research, even like flyover videos that you do, or if you just go out there and see what you could do to the golf course.
Yeah, I haven't done that. Maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe I'll add that into something, but haven't done that yet.
Do major weeks feel different for you? I mean, I'm assuming they feel different for a lot of players, but when you show up, do you feel different, or is there more excitement internally? Like, how do you approach major weeks versus week-to-week PGA Tour events?
Yeah, I mean, they're like the PGA Championship probably gets, out of all the majors, probably gets the biggest crowds, and so the energy level is usually the best. I mean, I haven't played a Masters where the crowds were there. I played it during the COVID year, so I didn't really get to experience the roars and all that stuff, but from the energy standpoint, I feel like a PGA Championship's, the top of the list, and the majors they're the majors. Like you get on the site and there's just like a different vibe and excitement and buzz, and it's really exciting, and it's something that, I feel like I try to just make it like every week, like what every pro says, in the interview, they ask that same question, like, how do you approach a major week? It's like, we try to do the exact same thing, but that's harder, said than done. Because there was so much excitement. There's so many opportunities and so many things, like so many different things. And they, they just set it up so nice for players it's incredible. So kind of have to just relax and try to get away from some of that excitement to perform.
All right, we're going to bring back some of the questions that we used to throw Max's way. This will be kind of how we wrap up the podcast. And this portion of the podcast is brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt. If you're feeling the heat on and off the course right now, thankfully you can keep yourself cool courtesy of London menswear brand Charles Tyrwhitt. They're experts when it comes to both casual wear and tailoring, and their summer collection is all you'll need this season, from polos with performance tech to breathable business shirts. You can bring your A game from work to the weekend. If that sounds good, I've got good news for you. Get a Grip listeners can buy any shirt for $39.95. plus free shipping with offer code CT24. That's code CT24 for a fresh look from Charles Tyrwhitt. That's charlestyrwhitt.com. That's TYRWHITT, charlestyrwhitt.com. Shout out to them for supporting the podcast. All right, what was the best shot you hit this past weekend? What was the best shot you hit at the Wells Fargo throughout the week? Do you have one that stands out?
Yeah, I had 18 the first round. They had the front left pin playing straight into the wind. I think it was 190 yards to the pin, and it was a lot of upslope into the wind. And I hit it I hit a little bit of a pole, and it went to a foot. And I think there wasn't anything inside probably 10 feet from the field. So that's a no-brainer. It was like, I couldn't believe it. Like, the guys, they were looking at the pin sheet prior to that round. They're like, that hole's going to be ridiculous. I was hearing some people talk about that. I was like, yeah, you're going to have a 35-footer. Pulled a little 6-iron. I was in between clubs. My caddy was trying to have me hit a 5. I said, I think I got this 6. Hit it perfect to a foot. So that was a good way to end the round.
I laugh a lot at pro golfers because they never say good shot unless it's a really, really good shot. Did the guys you were playing with say good shot on that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. they were like, dude, that was incredible. So some shots were like, dude, that was amazing. Doesn't happen very often that we give compliments out. But.
What was the worst shot you hit for the week?
Oh, worst shot. I probably was, let's see, it was my third round. I was 2 under par. I was playing pretty good. Got to 7, the par 5. I hit a 3-iron. Pin was on the left side. It's kind of on a tabletop. It's really hard to stop the ball up there. I just missed the green, hit a great iron, and trickles just left of the green. Probably have 25 feet to the pin. I'm in the fringe. Of course, I would like to putt the ball, but there's one of those drains in your way. I feel like they're always in your way when you're wanting to
always.
So
always.
I'm in the tight stuff, and I'm like, oh, this isn't too bad. And there's 1,000 people behind me watching. To set the shot up, it's just a little upslope. The green is pretty flat for like 25 feet, and then the green slopes way down and way off. Not a hard chip at all. Get up there, catch it way too cleanly, just rockets off my wedge and goes 45 feet away, and then I 3-putt, make a bogey. And just like, it's the biggest momentum killer in golf. You're 25 feet away from the eagle, you just walk off with a bogey. You're like, how did that just happen? You know, you're so angry at yourself. But
things happen quickly. Are you a get mad on the golf course guy, or do you just kind of internally deal with that?
Internally, I get pretty mad, but you can't see it on the outside. Definitely was getting mad last week, a lot more than normal. Bad chipping, I don't know. There's something about that. It gets on my nerves. I'm usually pretty good scoring, so that was hard.
All right, what was the best shot you saw all week? Was there one that stood out from somebody you were playing with, or a practice round, or something crazy where you gave them the nice swing or nice shot?
I mean, other than my shot on 18, which probably was the best one that I did see. I mean, I played with Nick Dunlap the final round. I don't know if you know who that is. I'm sure you do.
Yeah,
he's
the
winner.
The amateur turned pro.
Yeah, who won. He's incredible talent, but on that Charlie Paul 14, you know, the wind was humming in off the left, and they had a front right pin that last round, and he takes 3-wood, and it's probably 300 to the front, and I swear, he hit it's just like a laser beam. It never left the pin, and the wind didn't even touch it. It's just one of those shots that, like, dude, I don't have that shot, and you're extremely talented, and he hits the ball pretty far, and never left the pin, and just rolls up right on the front of the green. I'm like, dude, that was incredible, because I don't got that.
You got it. You got that. I don't. It's like watching Anthony Edwards right now when you're watching NBA. You're like, This guy is at a different level, right? Now, hey, one thing I'd always ask Max, that I didn't prep you for this, but maybe it stood out. If you don't have anything, it's not a big deal. What was the best thing somebody yelled at you or at your group this week? A fan that yelled it? Anything that kind of sticks out in your brain that you heard that got a chuckle out of you? Because what I say this, if you're going to yell something at a golf event or a sporting event, for God's sakes, be creative. You know, the same old yells are the lamest things in the world. But if somebody said something creative that stood out, I'd love to hear it.
I mean, I don't know. I should have been paying more attention for that, but I had the question going. I mean, it's the funny when you like that par 5, you know, where I go and I make a bogey from right short of the green, and then you're walking to the next tee, and the guy's like, good playing, like, nice shot, you know, and they're meaning it. Like, they're not trying to say it in a mean way. They literally are just sometimes are that clueless that they just, you know, they're trying to be like supportive of you walking, and you're just like, man, are you kidding me right now? Why are you telling me that?
Yeah.
Like, but no, I don't got much. I mean, it was pretty annoying watching the telecast. Some of these guys yelling on the last hole with Rory coming.
Gosh,
and some of these yahoos, I don't know.
They love to be heard. I will say, when you're playing with your buddy who's not very good, and you hit a wedge to like 35 feet, and they say good shot, that my blood boils when that happens. I don't say anything. I don't even look at them. Like, there's no reaction out externally, but internally, when you hit a shitty wedge and they go, nice shot, you're like, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That was great. I hope I 2-putt and make par.
Yeah,
you know,
backhanded compliment. Appreciate it.
Oh, gosh, it just kills you. The last thing I wanted to ask this earlier. What do you think? And I think I know the answer, because you've mentioned the restaurant already, and you were drinking from a cup earlier from it. What do you think you eat the most on the road weekly? What's the number one Uber Eats order, pick up food, place you guys consistently pick up or get food from?
It's just
I told
Chick-fil-A.
you. I knew it was Chick-fil-A.
Look, it's that time in our lives with kids. Like, literally the only thing I can get my boy to eat is chicken nuggets with ketchup. And it's just what we're going with. You know, it's just like, probably it's at least once or twice a week where we're just going to give up and go to Chick-fil-A. I mean, if there's an In-N-Out around, we usually will hit an In-N-Out. If we land into a place that has In-N-Out, that's our first stop.
Going right there.
Not going right there, but.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite is I'm searching out Thai food. Thai food is my go-to. My kids like it. My kids love Thai food. They'll eat whatever from there. So that's my preference. How about you? Do you have a favorite place on the road? I mean, you're traveling all the time.
I probably do Chipotle more than I should. I mean, it's just such an easy one to throw out there. I mean, Chick-fil-A is so good. I mean, again, it's like it feels like you're on the road, and it's the more unhealthy places than the healthy places. So I've been like I'm trying to mix in Kava a little bit more as of late in terms of the stuff I'm ordering, kind of the fast things or something like that. But those are it's super good, and I feel like they're always.
I'd never heard of that place before. Last year, I went to it, and it's the first time I ever heard of it. And some of these caddy, I turned my caddy, he's like, "You haven't heard of Kava?" Dude, I don't know. I'd never heard of it, and it's like incredible, healthy, just like Chipotle, but different style. I need to actually find that place. I need to get back there.
I'll see if there's a Louisville one, and I'll send it your way. Andrew, great first episode. Thanks so much for the time. Good luck this week. We'll check back with you next week after the PGA. And now you know to listen for dumb stuff yelled at you going forward. Now you can really.
I'm sure.
Now your ears you're gonna have Colin Montgomery ears now. You're gonna hear everything.
Unfortunately, I'll probably be remembering all this stuff now. It's gonna be getting in my head.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Shane. Yeah, that was fun. See you next week.